Good afternoon and welcome to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. Thank you for joining us again. So, as you all know, it all happened in Sharm el-Sheikh. Donald Trump called it a historic breakthrough and the dawn of, and I quote, a new peace. But the latest ceasefire brokered by the United States came into effect on the 10th of October. It was meant to signal the turning point. Yet, according to Gaza's media office, Israel has already violated the truce at least, again I repeat, at least 47 times, killing nearly more than, well, in fact, I shouldn't say nearly more than, killing more than 100 Palestinians to date. Today, he's been here many times before. He's back again, but this time we can't keep him for an hour, so you guys can't be getting carried away. He's a friend of the house. We love his brain. We love his knowledge. We learn a lot from him. He needs no introduction, but you should know he is the president of the U.S. Middle East Project, and he is also a former Israeli peace negotiator. If you don't already know now, log off, because you should know who Daniel Levy is. Daniel, and he's an Arsenal supporter. I can say that.
Exactly, and I can smile about it now.
For a change. I'm always teasing him about Arsenal. So, and then as soon as I stopped teasing him, they started winning. I have nothing to say to that.
Exactly. So stop teasing me.
How are you, Daniel? I know you don't have much time, so I'm going to get straight to it. Sharm el-Sheikh, Trump, historic breakthrough. He said a dawn of a new peace. He said he's broken a war of 3,000 years or whatever. I was there. I was in Sharm el-Sheikh. This is not about what I think. What did you make of that? I called it a razzmatazz, if I may say so. What would you call it?
Yeah, it was. It was in so many ways the Trump traveling circus. But I want to actually draw a distinction between two things, okay? Because he did something. And he was the lead on this. It was a bit more complicated than that, but he was the lead on this that really matters. He has put in place, it's fragile, but it's a ceasefire where the daily mass toll of killing, destruction, starvation, displacement of Palestinians in Gaza has mostly come to an end. There's been a decisive breakpoint. Those 20 remaining living military-age Israelis being held in Gaza were released. Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli prisons, almost 2,000, many of whom detained without trial or put into jail by military tribunals of an illegal military occupation. They were released. Aid is starting to get in. Israel's still playing a game with that aid. But that is all really meaningful, consequential stuff. It happened also because of international pressure, but it happened because of Trump. And then there's the other part of this, which is the show, the spectacle, but also the fictional, fantastical, unreal claims. Exactly what you refer to. I put an end to 3,000. No, you haven't. The state of war still exists. Israel still occupies half of Gaza, controls the rest of Gaza, all of the West Bank, East Jerusalem. There is still a state of war. This isn't the end of a 3,000-year conflict. I don't even think it's serious to talk about 3,000-year conflict. There is no plan there. The plan is bare bones. It's not implementable. It doesn't allow Palestinians to govern themselves. It never once mentions the West Bank even. So the bombastic claims are a shame, because they distract from what was a real achievement. But for that achievement to be sustained and for that achievement to become peace, you have to be serious and get into the detail, and that's not happening.
And isn't that the worry, though? Isn't that the problem? Because the devil, pardon the pun, because people go into religious places here, is in that detail. And unfortunately, the leader of the devil in that detail is one that doesn't do detail. So what happens with this next phase?
So what we've seen so far, because absolutely the details really matter. So there is no actual mechanism for getting the aid in. Israel is still turning on and off the tap, even though we see how desperately in need people are. For instance, there's this thing called a yellow line in Gaza. So half of Gaza, approximately, is still under the control of Israel. Now, Gaza is a very crowded and now totally obliterated place. But the neighborhoods and cities where Palestinians used to live and where they want to go back to now to see, does anything remain of my home, of my goods, of my belongings? Very often in those cities and neighborhoods, Israel is in part of the neighborhood and Israel is not in the other part. And Palestinians can, wander from one area to the other, not knowing, get shot. That has happened. So there isn't the detail. And therefore, what we have at the moment is not only a fragile ceasefire. And again, now let's give a word of credit. Because it is so fragile, you have had very high maintenance American engagement to keep it going, right? You've sent the vice president, the son-in-law, Jared Kushner. You've sent the envoy, Witkoff. Now you have the Secretary of State, Rubio. I don't think they're going to be able to sustain that. Some people, by the way, they call the nickname for the Israeli prime minister is Bibi. Some people are calling this Bibi sitting because they've got to make sure that he doesn't go too far off the plan. So, yes, they have made the effort to keep the ceasefire going, but all the other things that need to happen that could be a basis for peace, those things aren't happening, partly because this plan has an awful lot of Netanyahu's fingerprints on it. And now what we're seeing is that Israel is arming and paying gangs in Gaza to go in and cause chaos. I think they're trying to foment a civil war there. Meanwhile, in the other part of the Palestinian territory where there's an active military occupation by Israel in the West Bank, you're still seeing people being displaced, land being stolen, checkpoints preventing Palestinians going from one space to the other, people being killed, people being arrested. So we are still deep in the brown stuff.
And this is it. That brown stuff is where everybody seems to have gotten, where they get stuck. It's a bit like getting stuck in the mud, because it happened with Oslo 1, it happened with Oslo 2, and here we are. What are we going to call this? Sharm el-Sheikh 1, I guess.
Nice.
Right? Sharm el-Sheikh 1. So Palestinians are, especially Gazans, should I say, are thankful that the bombs are not raining on their heads anymore. Killings are still going on, but it's not raining. Palestinians or Gazans are happy that they are able to walk to their homes, even if it's a rubble. Those who don't have a home, they are still living in tents, as I saw yesterday on Al Jazeera. I think it was someone living in tents on top of burial grounds.
Yes.
Israel, one of the deal was Israel was supposed to get the bodies of dead hostages back to the families. Everybody wants to be able to register to bury their loved ones, to bury their dead, because even in Africa we all have a ritual, we all have a way, we have a prayer, etc., etc. It doesn't feel like closure, it doesn't feel complete. But nobody's talking about the dead Palestinians. All that was returned to Gaza were Palestinians who have been in hostage, in Israeli hostage, who effectively look much more disheveled and abused and speak of horror and terror. But nobody's talking about the dead, the bodies of Palestinians, which is still being held in Israel. Is that part of the deal? Or are we just to sort of just look beyond that and get on with the nice bits?
Well, there are the technical details, and then there's the wrapping, the wrapping paper that goes around this. So in terms of the details, Israel should be returning the dead bodies. And as you say, people want closure. Every tradition has its way of parting with loved ones. And it's absolutely right that the bodies of the Israelis should be returned. Now, one of the things that we knew during the negotiations is if Israel kept this yellow line, and if Israel insisted on certain things, it wasn't going to be easy, and perhaps in some cases impossible, to get to some of those bodies. So Israel has tried to use that as a pretext for not maintaining the ceasefire. The Americans haven't allowed that to happen so far. So one has to hope that the Israeli bodies will be returned. Israel hasn't returned all the Palestinian bodies, and what we have now learned from various press sources, which have been quite well documented and verified, is that many of the Palestinian bodies that have been sent back either in a very decomposed condition, where Israel has the capacity to keep those bodies. It's not like Israel was bombing Gaza incessantly, impossible conditions for and bombing hospitals for keeping bodies in a certain way. But that attempt and that effort was apparently made. But many of those Palestinian bodies returned are decomposed. Some have also shown signs of mutilation and torture. So that's factually what's going on. But I wanted to talk about the wrapping around that, because you mentioned something that's really important, which is how are the two things related to? And it seems another instance where Palestinian lives don't matter and Israeli lives assume a superior importance. Now, I don't want Israeli lives not to matter. I just want everyone to be treated equally. We are all born on this world as people. And let's look at the main guy here, President Trump. He has met the families of Israelis who had loved ones held, who had loved ones killed, who were waiting for bodies to be returned. He has met them, and his senior officials have met them on many, many occasions. And good, great that he did that. But not once has he or an American senior official met the family, the Palestinian family of a victim of the Gaza genocide, the Palestinian families of those who've been impacted, who've lost their homes, who've been displaced, who've gone through this hell, the families of journalists or aid workers or health workers who have been killed. And, one of the reasons we got to this place is the severe dehumanization of Palestinians. And it just feels like another occasion where, if the Western world sees you as Israeli and white, you are treated in one way. If the Western world sees you as Palestinian and other, you are treated in another way. And I think the really hard bit is somehow Israeli society, and I focused a lot on the destruction on the Palestinian side, and rightly so, but somehow Israeli society has to be pulled back from the really troubling place it is in, because over the course of 2 years, consent has been manufactured in a society for a genocide. And that somehow now needs to be reverse engineered. And people need to know that that's not okay. They need to confront what they have done. And there probably needs to be accountability for what has gone on.
Indeed. I mean, just to sort of extend to what you said, I remember watching an interview on 60 Minutes with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, and they kept referring to Hamas, as if every single member of the Politburo is called Hamas. And I'm thinking to myself, where is the sort of individuality? You said you sat with Khalil Al-Waya, I think his name is. You talked to him about what it's like to both lose his son, because his son was killed in Qatar. But yet you refer to him as Hamas. You don't refer to him as name, but yet you want to connect on the basis of loss. How do you do that? Which is quite bizarre to me. But we don't have...
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, go on.
Because, again, it's this weird kind of paradox with this administration. So on the one hand, and this really is the obvious thing to do, they sat with Hamas, right? As you just said. Which no American administration formally previously did and acknowledged, and the Biden administration didn't do it, and the European governments don't do it, and it's the most bloody obvious thing to do. You sit with the protagonists in a conflict. They are a political movement as well. But at the same time, as you say, they have this view that any Palestinian death, any Israeli action of cruelty can somehow be excused because they're all Hamas. They're just this undifferentiated mass blob. You accord them no humanity. And even that one story, and it was Witkoff who said it because he lost a son, that we bonded over our mutual loss. So Witkoff's son died of a drug overdose, and I'm not belittling the pain or the loss or the significance of that. Khalil El-Hayya's son was killed in an Israeli military strike intentionally in a city, Doha, where America has its military presence, because America allowed it to do so, using American weaponry and American warplanes. I'm sorry, my friend, that is not the same thing, okay? And if you're going to bond on a human level, accord that humanity to Palestinians writ large.
Indeed. I wish I could hold you down, but I'll get in trouble with you will get in trouble with your people.
Yeah, I'll get in trouble.
You'll get in trouble. Let's talk about the open letter, Jews Demand Action. You know, the few points that are made in there says the ceasefire must be the beginning, not the end. The letter also says Israel's actions may meet the legal definition of genocide. Unpack both of those for us. But what I did find interesting as well, if you could answer that, I saw the letter and thank you for sharing it. There were no names attached to it. So no Jewish organization, no Jewish name. So who are Jews Demand Action? Who are the people that put that together?
Okay, so on the website, which is Jews Demand Action, you have the names of the more well-known signatories. Thousands of people signed up in the 48 hours since this has gone public. But this is people from the worlds of culture, academia, the former Speaker of the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, yours truly, authors, professors of Holocaust studies at Hebrew University. So it's a well-known and quite serious group, and one that is still growing and from around the world as well. And it came together because, I mean, first of all, let me say something really obvious. There has never been in history, nor would it be a healthy thing if there were, only one Jewish opinion, right? I mean, you know, in any community, in any religious or national group, we disagree. That's
Absolutely.
fine. That's healthy. That's good. And so it's not new for us to be disagreeing. And it's not new for there to be Jewish people who say, I'm not comfortable with what Israel is doing. But something else happened over the last 2 years. And of course, so many of us were in shock when those first incidents of October 7th happened. But then so many of us were like, wait, what are you doing in response? What? Listen, don't pretend that this came out of thin air. It can't be justified. But decades of keeping people under a siege, a blockade, decades of occupation, decades of treating Palestinians inhumanely. And now you do this. Now there is open acknowledgement of collective punishment and genocidal intent. And you're taking pride in your cruelty. And this is the key bit. And you're saying that you're doing it in our collective name? That this is the Jewish thing to do? Stop right there. And many people over these 2 years have come out, had their own protests, been part of other protests, and said, not in our name. We are a people who, for many of us at least, draw on a tradition of a universal ethic of equality, of being born in God's image. We have suffered in our history. And now we do this as Jewish destiny? No, that's not going to happen. And so what people have, and what was behind this petition is also to say, in this moment of ceasefire, for which we are very grateful, let's not go back to our old bad habits. Let's not pretend that this can be business as usual. We need a fundamental rethink. Because if we believe that when a single life is lost, an entire world is lost, then in our tradition, as we understand it, there's no carve-out clause. There's no little asterisk. Terms and conditions do not apply to Palestinians. If you kill a Palestinian, then a whole universe hasn't been lost. No, it applies to any human life. And that is how we understand our tradition and our faith and our commitment to the future. And my hope is, and I don't think it's a totally naive hope, that more and more people are questioning what is being done and are saying, not in our name. And so we're having this is a conversation amongst ourselves, but it's also a conversation with the outside world, which is don't judge by what this guy, Netanyahu, or his government, or the radicals over there are doing, because it is important to send that message to the outside world. And I think people want to hear that message. I think people want to say, listen, we've got nothing against Jewish people. You know, we know a little bit, maybe a lot, maybe a little bit about your people, your history. We want to believe you are that kind of people, not that kind of people. And so it was very important to do this and put this out, and to acknowledge that I think the words we use there is we hang our heads in immeasurable sorrow that this shows evidence of being a genocide. I can stay with you a few more minutes if you'll have. I've messaged someone that I've got 5 more minutes.
Daniel, you know, what can I say? Your family.
Well, you could say no. I don't want you away, but
we want you. We want you. Because I've still got 2 more, if not 3 more questions. So here's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, Monolith, because in fact, this extension gives me an opportunity to go back into what you've just said without me having to kind of jump over quickly. I'm glad you mentioned that no society is a monolith, and indeed, when I read that letter, and I've had Rachel Shabi, who I've also interviewed. I've read her book. And there are so many, Ilan Pape, Finkus. There are so many. Miko Peled, who's coming on after you. Here's the thing, though. It is critically important that, you guys are speaking up and taking on that responsibility and saying, we are these people that you say you're doing this for. One of the things, but it also reminds me of, and it's because you mentioned that monolith, gosh, is that we didn't hear much, or we hardly ever heard. At least I went to school in England. I know you did, and I don't know what you were taught, but nobody ever told us about the anti-Nazi Germans.
Yes.
They didn't talk about them. So we were left believing that every single German was pro-Hitler. It was something that disturbed me. Not at that time, because I was a child. Much, much later, and even more so now, that led me into research. And we thank God for documentaries and everything, because we can cheat without reading a book now, watch a documentary, and then take the research further and stuff. So this monolith is that, and the same exists with Palestinians. But when it comes to Palestinians, it is often presented as no consensus amongst the Palestinians. And I keep saying, I don't why is the Palestinian supposed to be one? I'm a Nigerian, we're not one. Heck, I'm Yoruba, we're not one. Heck, my sisters, we're not one. We totally disagree on several levels, albeit still being together. Talk to us about that. Why is the same thing not afforded to the Palestinians? Why are they constantly expected to speak as one?
So, let me say 3 things. 1, I totally agree. Within that agreement, there is a subset of that point of the unrealistic expectation for Palestinians to speak as one. There is a subset of that which is at least worth acknowledging, which is if you are a people living under occupation, under apartheid, without your freedom, without your rights, it still hasn't achieved that. The onus is to create enough unity that you have a joint strategy. So we all remember back to South Africa. Of course, the ANC wasn't the only movement. There's the Pan-African Congress. Its motto was one settler, one bullet. There was the Inkatha Freedom Party,
absolutely,
which kind of made its peace with the regime. There were the Bantustan collaborator leaders of the...
Even the ANC weren't one. Even the ANC were not one.
But you had enough. You need a leadership that can show enough unity that it can guide the struggle of a people. So I just want to acknowledge that. I want to say one thing about that education in the UK. Of course, the things you mentioned weren't the only things we didn't learn about. I just reached up into my drawer. I mean, this book, Empire Land.
Oh, thank you for that. Okay, I should write it down. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't learn that in English schools either, did we?
No, we didn't.
We just learned it was glorious. The sun never set on the British Empire, and that's all there was to know about
I only remember the Battle of Hastings. I keep telling everybody that's all I remember.
And then the last thing I want to say on this is and it's one of the points we make in the letter. And you mentioned there were anti-Nazi Germans. But we remember, as Jews in our history, those who stood up against persecution. And one of the things that's been most painful in the last 2 years is that we have seen people who've stood up against what's being done, and we've often stood with them, and we have seen them being vilified and hounded and cancelled for anti-Semitism. And we see in those people, very often, the same people who stood with us in our time of need, and now they are being treated in that way. And so we also want to show solidarity with those who are unfairly being tarnished. Indeed. And I'll do one more question.
One more question. Here's the big one then. So, of course, this is the big
who's
one.
Who's going to win the league?
Not Arsenal. Right. So, of
if
course...
If we don't win, I know who to blame.
It's not going to be Arsenal. If they win, I promise, we can swap positions.
You're
and you
me
can...
on the show.
No, you can question me. You can interview me.
Okay, it's a deal. If we win, I'm on the show. I'm in charge.
You're in charge. Absolutely. Right. So, very quickly, you're, of course, the son of Lord Levy. Those who don't know who Lord Levy is, he's big, huge. When you hear Lord, that's no small. We're not talking about that Lord you've got in the Bible that you guys can all contest about. We are talking Lord Levy. Lord Levy, of course, worked with Tony Blair whilst he was Prime Minister. He was your dad was the advisor to Tony Blair. And here you are, clearly a liberal, Jewish, human rights, I don't know if I can say pro-Palestine, but I can certainly say a campaigner for both groups for equality. Now we have Tony Blair as CEO of Trump's new empire in Gaza, and everybody is against it. What are your thoughts on that? Especially TBI, the Tony Blair Institute, and the history of it all.
Look, I don't know whether he will play that role. I don't know whether it's going to go forward. I certainly haven't spoken to him. There was obviously his name was mentioned very clearly. It's talked about less, but it could go forward. The problem for me, and of course, Tony Blair in that region, given the Iraq war, given the role he played in it, that's not something that is making people feel warm and fuzzy and positive about this idea. I think the main issue for me is, what do the Palestinians say? Because this role of who runs Gaza, outside help is one thing. The imposition of what feels like a colonial structure in the third decade of the 21st century, it feels like the charter for a reconstituted Dutch East India Company or something, right? That's the wrong starting place. So I don't care whether it's Tony or anyone else. I want to know, have the Palestinian people been consulted? Have they been given a space to say, this is what we want to see in our land after it's been destroyed? And it begins and ends with the answer to that question. And that's where
the Palestinians have said no. Look, everybody, we're out of time. He will be back. Daniel, he still believes Arsenal's going to win, so he's got to come back. Thank you so much. I know your peeps are already messaging you. Thank you for giving up the time. Now you leave me to do the hard work. I have to answer all their questions.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Daniel Levy.
Thank you.
Above and beyond borders.
Beyond borders.
It's Borderline
with Ireti Bakare-Yusuf.
Welcome back to Borderlines. That was Daniel Levy. You see, we actually gotten a lot of discussion in that short time. Some of you were already calling. You can call. Let's have an open mic because my next guest is not here for another 20 odd minutes or so. Right? So feel free to call. Which one is working? Which number is working? This one. None of them. Which one is all of them? Right, 0201 277 0. You're already calling. Okay, let me give you priority. Hello. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. What?
Good afternoon, merchants man. How are you?
I'm fine. I enjoyed your program.
Thank you.
My question is, will you be the one to answer the question or your guest?
I think I will be, right? Yes.
Okay. You will try as much as you can to answer the question.
I will.
My question is like this, ma. Now that Israel decided to flout the ceasefire agreement and went on to kill as much as 45 Palestinians. The ceasefire has been flattered for 45 times, right? According to I got from you.
Yeah.
So now that truce has been truncated, what will be the implication, or how would America handle that issue of that truce flouting?
Okay, so let me tell you what's happened. If you want to listen, because nobody's calling yet, you can call. But since you're not calling, I'll give Merchants Mind my time. It's a good question you asked. Since Israel violated, that's one of the reasons why you saw America sending, or Donald Trump sending in all his boys. So you had J.D. Vance, you had Jared Kushner, you had Steve Witkoff, each one of them, and then lately you had Marco Rubio. Each one of them was sent there to actually stop it. Now, what Israel said was that they that because Hamas hadn't released the bodies of the dead Israeli hostages, they felt that, I'm paraphrasing, that Hamas was playing games. However, what the Americans, and indeed President Trump, acknowledged is that, look, we knew in this deal, Hamas did say it's going to take us a while because Gaza is a rubble. We've got to find them, etc., etc. So that was the excuse that Israel were using. Israel also said or claimed that Hamas militants were actually attacking them. We don't know. I can't say whether that is a lie or truth, but those were the reasons Israel said. Having said all of that, the one thing America has done is they have stopped Israel from carrying on. They did actually step up, and I have to say, like Daniel said, the unorthodoxy of President Donald Trump actually appears to be what is working on Prime Minister Netanyahu, and indeed his far-right group. Is that an answer for you?
It's a very good answer. It's just
Thank
that
you. They're
like
ringing
anyhow,
now. They're ringing now. I gotta go, merchant man. I give you
all
time.
right. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello. You need to turn off your radio.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, but I'm mostly from Surulere.
Go ahead, Pastor Gbadamosi.
Yeah, I'm thinking, is Gaza a new model of colony from Americans?
Of colonize, yes. Yeah.
They want to colonize Gaza now as a unit. Yeah, there's a new colonization. Is that a model? Is that what Trump's trying to do?
Well, it's a good question you ask. Some would argue, certainly, that, like Daniel said, this is another form of neo-colonization, taking over and trying to rule. On the other hand, President Trump will say to you, or the Americans will say to you, look, we are trying to stop this genocide from carrying on. And so far, it has worked. And the reason we have been able to do this is because we rose up to take control. Now, if you're asking what I think, personally, I do believe as long as the Palestinians are not invited to contribute in the conversation, as long as the opinions of the Palestinians has not been sought, indeed, as long as there was no Palestinian leader in this whole thing, then yes, it is colonization. In actual fact, if you remember the Berlin conference, go and check it. That's what it reminds us of, Pastor Badamasi.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
I'm here. I'm here.
Can America give Gaza or the Palestinians independence?
Absolutely. America can say, and it's again, this is the last question I'll answer from you because people are calling now. Absolutely. America can say, if President Donald Trump were to wake up or even in the next hour and say, I, as the President of America, grant the Palestinians their freedom, I assure you, Israel will go on fire. They would scramble all over the place. But certainly, Israel will have to get to the table because, and this is what's missing. This is what every single American president has not been able to say. They keep thinking.
I think Donald Trump will win his Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize.
If you were to do that, perhaps. Thank you. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from Isheda. I'm Yusuf by name.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the ceasefire meeting was held in Egypt.
Yes.
What is the opinion of the Arab? Can they be part of the international forces that will make peace part of it so that they can deter all these things? Or are they afraid? Or why should they even be part of the ceasefire?
Okay.
If they cannot even have a standing voice in those things.
Okay,
That's
can
my
I answer
question.
your question? You want to wait? Right. It was signed in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and the Arabs were a part of that. That is the thing. The 4 countries that signed, I think, was Turkey, Qatar, USA, and the 4th one is out of my head, might have been Egypt. So the Arabs were a part of that. Indeed, the Arabs did agree to that peace plan. The peace plan that was signed in Sharm el-Sheikh that led to this ceasefire. So the Arabs indeed seem to be believing that this current cease plan will work. In actual fact, if I may remind you, you may not know, but let me tell you this. Yesterday there was a vote at the Knesset. The vote was the first part of a 4-part process. The first part was a vote for Israel to annex the West Bank. It wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, actually, I think. Although I think it came out on the news yesterday. To access the West Bank. Once that vote was passed, although, and this is important, when the vote was going on, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu abstained. All of his Likud party, except one, abstained. The others ruled for it. Now, why is this important? Immediately that was done, the Americans stood up and said, no. In fact, President Donald Trump said, if Israel does that, if Israel annexes the West Bank, they will lose U.S. support. And he said the reason why, because he had promised the Arabs that he would never allow the annexation of West Bank to happen. Now, that's not to say the Arabs have done great up until this time. That's just to answer your question. This is what the Arabs have been doing. So in a way, they've stood up to be counted more recently. But in another side, on the opposite side of that, and this is where the work of diplomacy is possibly most annoying, dirty, ugly, it's not pretty, is that you've seen the Arab countries trying to ingratiate themselves to the United States for their own security. I hope that answers your question. Wow. Hello.
Hello, CCOB. Good evening.
Good evening, Emmanuel.
My first question is to you.
Go ahead.
Your trip, was it bankrolled by Nigeria Info, the Israeli government, or by yourself? That's one. Secondly, with the new development, because Benjamin Netanyahu wanted this war to go on, I don't know if it was for pure hatred, for the Palestinians, or for his own political career to save face. So, with this intervention of the U.S., because obviously they stopped what he wanted to do, is it going to look bad, in the eyes of the Israelis now?
Thank you.
Or the status quo will remain. Perhaps his image is probably going to look good.
Okay.
And then,
No. People are calling. Right, you've got two. Emmanuel. Oh dear, you've dropped the phone. So Emmanuel, the first question is, I don't know why it's important to you, but my company, my organization, the organization that I work for, Nigeria Info, sent me to Sharm el-Sheikh. It wasn't Israel. It wasn't my personal cause. No, I went there for work. So I hope that answers your question. And it certainly wasn't Palestine. It was Nigeria Info that sent me to go and cover it. That's number one. To answer your second question, I think what you'll find with regards to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is indeed this it's widely believed that he wants the genocide to continue. He calls it a war. Of course, the Palestinians will call it a genocide. So let's use a word called conflict, because it can't be a war, because a war is two sides, symmetrical, and this is not symmetrical. Now, here's the thing. Yes, indeed, because as long as the conflict continues, they don't change. However, because President Donald Trump has taken some of the most unprecedented moves, like I said, the man's greatest credit and his greatest downfall is his unorthodox ways. And in this case, he has done what he wanted to do. And what triggered that? The moment that Israel bombed Qatar, Hamas, the Hamas Politburo, the negotiation team in Qatar, whilst going over the ceasefire negotiations, which the Americans wanted them to go over. That was it. That changed everything, because in diplomacy, again, there needs to be trust. So from that moment onwards, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did lose American support. Indeed, I can argue, and I think I can boldly say, he annoyed President Trump. And so here we are. However, what you have seen and what you must have seen is every single, whether it's Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, or President Trump himself, or J.D. Vance, or indeed Marco Rubio, every single one of them are doing their very best to sell Prime Minister Netanyahu to the Israelis. There's been a lot of PR to clean up his image. And the Israelis, the people of Israel, keep literally turning it down, and they keep booing him. So there's going to be elections in Israel in the next couple of months. We wait and see what happens. Again, Emmanuel, if I may remind you, do you remember when President Trump was at the Knesset and he literally asked the president, Isaac Herzog, I think his name is, asked him if that he should pardon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for all his crimes, all the charges. Now, how do you pardon somebody that hasn't been sentenced? So you can see there's been a massive, PR cleanup to resell Prime Minister Netanyahu to the Israelis. I don't think the Israeli public are buying it. Right, I'm coming back to your calls now. Hello.
Hello, moderator and co-guest. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Titilokwe. How are you?
I'm fine. I can be better if Palestinian people are free, finally.
Well, we'll see.
Number one, I have about 3-4 questions. and I think it's going to be a dialogue, if you will. Number one.
No, you can do two. We don't. They're going to throw me off in 4 minutes.
No problem. No problem. Let me start from the diplomatic shuttle by America, and I want to start specifically with J.D. Vance. He said yesterday that was a stupid political stunt.
Yes,
what
he
can
did.
you deduce from that statement? What can you deduce from that comment he said?
Okay.
Stupid political stunt. Saying it in the public against some of his people. Stupid political stunt.
Yes,
what
I
can
heard
deduce
you.
From that statement?
Okay. What's the second question? Is
the
that
second
it?
Question is, now, the second question is the International Stabilization Force. America is also talking about it now. Yes, Egypt is ready, Turkey is ready, Dubai is ready, there's some other countries are ready. Do you think, at this stage, I can say there won't be any problem at the United Nations Security Council because that will be ratified there. Since America is involved, I think it's going to go through.
Quickly, if you want me to answer.
Do you think there will be problem with Israel now? Maybe Benjamin Netanyahu or maybe the far right, whatever, because they have to. They say they are going to be involved in what happened in the security of Gaza. And don't forget.
No, Titi Lokwe, you have used up all your time. I can't answer you. I have a minute left. I have a minute left. They're going to throw me off air.
They have a rival gang there, sponsored by Israel.
Yeah.
How are they going to be managing? How are they going to be managing all of these problems all together?
Okay, your first question is what? Have you even forgotten? Titi Lokwe, this is what you do. What's your first question?
The first question is J.D. Vance.
Okay, right. I get it. Oh, you're still listening.
I want you to do something from that comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So J.D. Vance said, yes, it was a stupid stunt. And he clearly he was caught off guard. But I think what is more the significance, though, for me, is that it was clear to me that J.D. Vance was outside of his depth. He was out of his depth. He didn't know how to control what was going on. Israel clearly wasn't, or at least Benjamin Netanyahu clearly wasn't afraid of him. And nobody informed him that this thing would be happening. So the boss was clearly not happy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent him back home and sent Marco Rubio to come and take over from him. They literally crossed paths. That's what I think. And that stupid stunt, yes, because it was going to be yet another stupid stunt. And had that been the final vote, it would have been the equivalent of what Israel did in Qatar by bombing Hamas negotiators. Let me read some text messages very quickly. Good evening, Cecile Gay. On President Trump's statement as Sharm el-Sheikh, what impact might this statement have on Israel-Palestine relations, especially those homeless, bereaved and neglected Palestinians too? What lesson from history could inform the success of the failure of this initiative? Why did Trump choose Sharm el-Sheikh? Oh my word. You guys ask 300 questions at once and they're throwing me off and I've got to go. God, I can't go. Can I answer? No, I can't. I'm so sorry.
Big moves. Little brain. Big learning. Your little child is eager. .3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria